Imagine waking up tomorrow to a news alert flashing across your phone. Nuclear attack. City targeted. The unthinkable has happened. What would those first moments be like? How would it feel to be in the crosshairs of unimaginable destruction? It's a scenario most of us prefer to ignore, a nightmare relegated to the realm of fiction. But ignoring the potential consequences doesn't make them disappear. In fact, understanding the immediate aftermath of a nuclear strike is crucial for grasping the sheer gravity of the situation. To truly understand the scale of destruction, consider this. A single modern nuclear warhead can release more energy than all the explosives used during the entirety of World War II. That includes the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, along with every other bomb, shell, and grenade detonated over 6 years of global conflict. Now, imagine that concentrated into a single, devastating moment. The initial blast would be unlike anything you've ever witnessed, or even imagined. A blinding flash, brighter than 1,000 suns, would sear itself into your retinas, even if you were miles away. This isn't just a visual phenomenon. The intense heat generated by the explosion would ignite anything flammable within a considerable radius. Almost instantaneously, an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, would surge outwards, frying electronic circuits and rendering most modern technology useless. Cars would stall, power grids would collapse, and communication networks would go dark. The digital world, so integral to our daily lives, would vanish in an instant, leaving survivors isolated and cut off from the outside world. Following the flash and the EMP, a pressure wave traveling at supersonic speeds would slam into everything in its path. This is more than just a strong gust of wind. It's a wall of compressed air capable of leveling buildings, shattering glass, and turning ordinary objects into deadly projectiles. At the heart of this devastation lies Ground Zero, the point on the Earth's surface directly beneath the detonation. This is the epicenter of destruction, the place where the laws of physics seem to bend and break. Within a certain radius of Ground Zero, everything would be instantly vaporized. Buildings, trees, cars, and even people would simply cease to exist, reduced to their constituent atoms in a fraction of a second. The size of this vaporization zone depends on the yield of the warhead. For example, a 500 kiloton warhead, a relatively common size in modern nuclear arsenals, would create a ground zero radius of approximately 0.7 miles. Within this zone, the temperature would reach tens of millions of degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to vaporize steel and turn concrete into dust. Beyond the immediate vaporization zone, the effects would still be catastrophic. The intense heat would cause widespread fires, creating a firestorm that would consume everything in its path. Buildings would collapse, burying people alive beneath tons of rubble. The pressure wave would shatter windows and doors, turning them into razor-sharp shards of glass that would fly through the air at lethal speeds. But what would it be like to actually experience those first few seconds? What would people see, feel, and think as the world around them disintegrated? For those closest to Ground Zero, death would be instantaneous. They wouldn't even have time to register what was happening. The intense heat and pressure would simply obliterate them. Further away, the experience would be agonizing. People would suffer severe burns, their skin melting and blistering. The pressure wave would throw them through the air like ragdolls, causing traumatic injuries such as broken bones, internal bleeding, and head trauma. Collapsing buildings would be a major cause of death and injury. People caught inside would be crushed beneath tons of concrete and steel. Even those who managed to escape would face a gauntlet of falling debris and flying projectiles. The psychological impact would be immense. Imagine the sheer terror of witnessing a nuclear explosion, of feeling the heat on your skin, of hearing the deafening roar of the pressure wave. The survivors would be traumatized for life, haunted by the memories of what they had seen and experienced. Consider the story of Akiko Takakura, a survivor of the Hiroshima bombing. She was just 20 years old and working as a bank clerk when the bomb detonated a mere 300 meters from her location. Miraculously, she survived, shielded by the concrete building she was in. But the experience left her with horrific burns and lifelong physical and emotional scars. Her story, while unique in its details, offers a glimpse into the potential horrors that millions could face in a nuclear attack. The immediate aftermath would be a scene of unimaginable chaos and destruction. The air would be thick with dust, smoke, and the stench of burning flesh. The cries of the injured and dying would fill the air. The survivors would be disoriented, terrified, and desperately searching for loved ones. In those first few seconds, the world would change forever. The lives of countless people would be extinguished, and the survivors would be left to pick up the pieces of a shattered world. But the immediate blast is just the beginning. What happens in the next few minutes is even more terrifying, and it's something most people haven't even considered. The initial blast is just the beginning. What follows is something far more terrifying: a firestorm. Imagine every small fire, every spark, suddenly amplified. Think of overturned gas lines igniting, splintered wood catching flame, curtains and carpets turning to ash in an instant. These aren't isolated incidents. They are the harbingers of something truly apocalyptic. A firestorm is not merely a collection of fires burning simultaneously. It's a singular, unified inferno. A self-sustaining monster of heat and destruction. Picture this: dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of individual fires erupting across a city already reeling from the initial shockwave. These flames begin to coalesce, drawn together by the sheer intensity of their heat. As they merge, they create a vortex, a swirling mass of fire that consumes everything in its path. The science behind this is both simple and horrifying. The combined heat of the fires superheats the air above. This hot air rises rapidly, creating a powerful updraft. As the hot air ascends, it creates a vacuum, sucking in cooler air from the surrounding areas. This inrushing air becomes fuel for the flames, feeding the fire and intensifying its burn. But here's the terrifying part: this inrushing air isn't a gentle breeze. It's a raging wind, a hurricane of fire, tearing through the city at speeds that can exceed 100 miles per hour. These winds don't just spread the flames, they carry burning debris, chunks of buildings, cars, and anything else that isn't bolted down, further and further afield, igniting new fires in their wake. The temperature inside a firestorm is almost unimaginable. We're talking about temperatures soaring to 1400, even 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to melt aluminum, hot enough to incinerate human flesh in seconds. And it's not just the heat that's deadly. The fire consumes oxygen at an alarming rate, creating a suffocating atmosphere devoid of breathable air. Carbon monoxide, a silent killer, fills the air, poisoning anyone who hasn't already succumbed to the flames. What does this mean for anyone caught in the path of a firestorm? Escape is virtually impossible. The sheer speed and intensity of the fire, combined with the hurricane-force winds and the lack of oxygen, create a death trap from which there is no escape. Consider the firebombing of Dresden during World War II. In February 1945, Allied forces unleashed a torrent of incendiary bombs on the city. What followed was one of the most devastating firestorms in human history. Eyewitness accounts from Dresden paint a picture of unimaginable horror. People were caught in the streets, their clothes bursting into flames. They ran screaming, only to be consumed by the inferno. The intense heat melted asphalt, trapping those who tried to flee. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of burning flesh. Or think about Hiroshima. While the atomic blast itself caused immense destruction, the firestorm that followed amplified the devastation. The heat ignited widespread fires, which quickly merged into a single, massive conflagration. Survivors who had managed to escape the initial blast were now faced with a new, even more terrifying threat. These historical examples offer a glimpse into the sheer scale of devastation that a firestorm can unleash. They are a stark reminder of the destructive power of unchecked fire and the fragility of human life in the face of such overwhelming force. The firestorm isn't just about the immediate destruction. It's about the complete annihilation of everything in its path. Buildings are reduced to rubble, infrastructure is obliterated, and entire neighborhoods are wiped off the map. The landscape is transformed into a charred wasteland, a testament to the destructive power of nuclear war. The chances of surviving a firestorm are virtually zero. The heat, the smoke, the lack of oxygen, and the sheer force of the winds combine to create an unsurvivable environment. Those who aren't killed outright by the flames are likely to succumb to smoke inhalation or carbon monoxide poisoning. The psychological impact of witnessing such devastation is also profound. Survivors who manage to escape the firestorm are often left traumatized, haunted by the images of death and destruction they have witnessed. The memories of the fire, the screams of the dying, and the stench of burning flesh can linger for years, even decades, after the event. The firestorm represents a complete breakdown of society. Emergency services are overwhelmed, communication networks collapse, and law and order break down. People are left to fend for themselves in a desperate struggle for survival. But even if you somehow survive the firestorm, you're not out of danger. In fact, the next threat is invisible, silent, and potentially even more deadly. The firestorm may have subsided, but the nightmare is far from over. An invisible killer now stalks the land: nuclear fallout. These aren't just abstract particles, they are fragments of the exploded weapon and debris, made intensely radioactive. Imagine microscopic shards of glass and metal, each one emitting a constant stream of harmful radiation. There are two main types of fallout to understand. Early fallout, the most dangerous, consists of heavier particles that descend within the first 24 hours, concentrating near the blast zone. Then there's delayed fallout, comprised of lighter particles carried by the wind over vast distances, potentially affecting areas hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Think of the wind as an invisible conveyor belt, carrying these radioactive particles across state lines and national borders. The size and weight of the particles determine how far they travel. Larger particles fall out relatively quickly, while smaller ones can remain airborne for days, even weeks. Imagine a map of the United States, with a hypothetical nuclear strike on Chicago. Depending on the prevailing winds, fallout could blanket major cities like Detroit, Cleveland, and even reach parts of Canada. The intensity of the radiation would vary, but the threat would be undeniable. What makes fallout so terrifying is its insidious nature. Radiation exposure can cause a range of health problems. At lower doses, you might experience nausea, fatigue, and hair loss. This is often called acute radiation sickness. Higher doses can lead to internal bleeding, organ failure, and ultimately, death. But even if you survive the initial exposure, the long-term risks are significant. Radiation damages DNA, increasing the likelihood of developing cancer later in life. It can also cause genetic mutations, potentially affecting future generations. Radiation dosage is measured in units called sieverts. A dose of 1 sievert can cause radiation sickness. 10 sieverts is almost always fatal. So, what can you do to protect yourself? The first, most crucial step is to seek shelter immediately. A sturdy building, preferably with thick walls and a basement, offers the best protection. Seal all windows and doors with tape and plastic sheeting to prevent radioactive particles from entering. Stay informed. Tune into a battery-powered radio for official updates and instructions. Do not rely on the internet or cell phones, as these may be down. And finally, consider potassium iodide, or Ki, tablets. These tablets can protect your thyroid gland from absorbing radioactive iodine, a major component of nuclear fallout. However, Ki tablets are only effective against radioactive iodine, and they must be taken within a specific time frame to be beneficial. Think of them as a targeted defense, not a cure-all. But even with these precautions, survival is far from guaranteed. The long-term consequences of a nuclear attack are devastating, and they extend far beyond the immediate impact zone. The immediate aftermath of a nuclear blast is only a prelude to a much longer, agonizing saga. Picture a world stripped bare, not just by fire and radiation, but by the complete disintegration of the systems we rely on every single day. Hospitals, once sanctuaries of healing, become death traps, their power cut, their supplies exhausted, and their staff either dead or overwhelmed. The power grid, the lifeblood of the modern city, lies in twisted ruins, plunging everything into darkness and silence. Water supplies, now contaminated or simply non-existent, turn into a source of desperate conflict. Communication networks, our lifeline to the outside world, fall silent, leaving survivors isolated and alone. Imagine families huddled together, desperately trying to find clean water or a working radio, only to be met with the grim reality of scarcity and silence. How do you rebuild when the very foundations of society have crumbled? But beyond the physical devastation, a deeper, more insidious wound festers: the psychological trauma. The survivors, those who witnessed the unimaginable, now carry the weight of that horror within them. Grief, despair, and a profound sense of loss become their constant companions. Consider the children who have lost their parents, the parents who have lost their children, all grappling with a world irrevocably changed. Mental health services, already strained in normal times, are now non-existent, leaving countless individuals to struggle with their demons in isolation. Historians who have studied the aftermath of other large-scale disasters, like the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, have noted the long-lasting effects of trauma on entire communities, with increased rates of suicide, depression, and substance abuse. What do you think it would be like to live with this kind of trauma every day? And what about the broader societal consequences? The breakdown of law and order is almost inevitable. With resources dwindling, desperation sets in, leading to looting, violence, and the collapse of any semblance of social structure. Famine and disease become rampant, as contaminated water and lack of sanitation create breeding grounds for epidemics. Imagine entire communities ravaged by dysentery or cholera, with no medical care available. The lucky ones might find refuge in makeshift camps, but even there, survival is a daily struggle. The spectre of nuclear war is terrifying, but it's not a foregone conclusion. Nuclear disarmament and international cooperation are essential to preventing this nightmare from becoming reality. We must support organizations working for peace, educate ourselves on the issue, and engage in constructive dialogue with those who hold different views. What are your biggest fears about nuclear war? What steps do you think we can take to prevent it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to learn more about this critical issue, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth content.